Hey, what's up, everybody? This is your boy, the dope ass dude, and I am so excited to be with you on tonight. It's going to be a great show, and I'm really excited about everything that we're going to be talking about tonight. So, just a couple of preliminary things you already know. If you are not subscribed to the YouTube channel, if you don't mind, go ahead subscribing to the YouTube channel, and while you're there, click on that like and subscribe button so that you can be notified the subscribe and notify button so that you can be notified each and every time a new video is uploaded to the channel. And then while you're there, go ahead and click on that like so that this podcast can get shared with others just like you. Now, if you're on the go, you can always follow the podcast and listen to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, which is now YouTube Music. I'm going to change that, but many of us still have the Google Podcast app on our phone, just like me. But Google Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. So, again, if you're on the go, you can always catch the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. And if you're not following the podcast on TikTok and Instagram, if you don't mind following it on both platforms, I am the dope ass dude on both platforms. So that's TikTok and Instagram. You can follow it there, the Dope Ass Dude podcast. And then also, if you're not wanting to watch it on YouTube, you can always catch it on Facebook, LinkedIn, X, which was Twitter, and YouTube. So available on all of those platforms. And before we bring Victoria out, we're going to go ahead and do those couple of things. You can follow Victoria on Instagram. She is the Feel Your Feelings, and Feelings is with a Z, pod. So again, that's Feel Your Feelings Pod on Instagram, and on Facebook, she is As Told by Victoria. So again, you can follow her on both platforms. So I'm really excited to have Victoria on the podcast tonight, and she is the first ever Gen Z person to be on the podcast. So I'm really excited to have her on the podcast. Victoria, she is working on her second master's degree, and she is really doing her thing. And I'm going to let her tell you all about her. But one thing that I really am so excited about having her on here is because Gen Z comes with an interesting perspective. And for many of us that are older than that age group, sometimes we can look at Gen Z as being selfish. And the reason being is because they make decisions just on the fly, seem like. They only look at how their decisions are going to impact them. And as selfish as that may be, I think we all need to be that way in some regards. And that's something that I've shared with on the previous three podcasts, is that like at this phase of my life, I'm at a selfish stage of my life because I am for once putting myself first. And I think that is what a lot of us need to do. We are making excuses and finding reasons why we can't put ourselves first. And of course, we all know as a kid, we are taught selfish is not a good thing. And in some regards, it is, but it's not. But when you are placing others and things always before you, and you are always coming up short, that is when it becomes a problem. So that is why I'm very excited to have Victoria on tonight, because I've had multiple conversations with her, and she brings such an interesting and innocent perspective to the table. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring her on out. Victoria, what's going
What's going
on?
on? How are you doing? How are you feeling?
I'm feeling amazing. How are you feeling?
I'm doing amazing. I was looking for my headphones right before this to match you because usually I wear my headphones over the ear while I'm recording and podcasting, but I cannot find them anywhere. So we're just going to go with it.
We're just gonna go
We're
with
just
it,
going to
and
go
we
with it.
can we can hear you well, and hopefully
Great.
you can hear us well.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes. So, as you know, we are related. I'm your niece. So you've known me my whole life. But to those that do not know me, my name is Victoria. I am a digital creative and a podcast host based in the Dallas, Texas area. I host a show called the Feel Your Feelings podcast, and it's basically to bridge the gap between my generation, Gen Z, and mental health. And I started that show back in grad school when I was a grad student at the George Washington University, and it's now become like a passion project for me. So that's me.
That's it. That's all you
Yeah,
got.
that's it.
See, that's amazing that's all you got because I like see you in so many facets. I mean, you were
I
an
know.
intern for Gail King.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
so tell us a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, so first and foremost, I'm also a student. I'm pursuing my second master's degree at the moment, but I pursued my first master's degree at the George Washington University and I actually got my first internship at CBS this morning. It's called CBS Mornings now, but back then it was called CBS Mornings. And I interned under um, Gail King, Tony DeCopel, and Anthony Mason when they hosted the show. And that was a fascinating experience because it was during the pandemic. So all of our meetings took place over Zoom. So I only got to see them and meet them through Zoom boxes. So that was a cool experience to get me into the media field. I was very fresh. Um, Still hadn't really had any like heavy work experience, but that exposed me to the media industry. I met famous, not just famous people, but great producers, associate producers, fellow interns that are still in the industry. And fun fact, the last day of my internship at CBS this morning in April of 2021, either 2021 or 2022, I actually got a chance to be a producer on one of their segments. And that's huge. So, what they do is during their morning news segment, they have what you call a pitch call. And so I pitched a story at the time for LeVar Burton, whom I'm sure you're familiar with. He was on Roots back in the day. He's also a USC alum. Fight on. And he was trying to get on Jeopardy at the time. You remember that?
Yeah.
He was
Wait a
trying
minute,
to
he
be
was
like
trying to get on Jeopardy.
he was trying to be like the first Black host of Jeopardy
Okay,
at the
nice.
time.
Okay.
And I had pitched a segment for them to talk to him about wanting to be the first Black Jeopardy host. And they took it. They were like, okay. And that was my last day. So I pretty much had class that evening. So I was done for the day. And I had my online class that evening. And then one of the producers reached out to me and she's like, hey, Victoria, like something cool just came up. We're going to be talking to LeVar. Would you like to sit in on the interview? It's just going to be like a Zoom call. You could just sit in on it. So I'm like, yeah. So I leave class early. I sit in on this Zoom call. It's LeVar Burton talking with Vlad Duthiers. Vlad Duthiers, he's another one of the news anchors for CBS Mornings. And they were having a conversation, everything. And they see me in the chat or in the Zoom. And they're like, is Victoria turn? He's like, this is our intern, Victoria. And he's like, oh, turn your camera on. So my camera was not, it was, oh my gosh. So I turned my camera on. Chance is my sister. I have an older sister named Chance Lord. She's also in the media space. She wanted to go into like film, screenwriting, journalism. So we kind of studied the same similar field. So I told her that he was going to be on it. So anyway, she comes up and he sees both of us and he's like, oh, y'all the sisters, which one's the bad one? And stuff like that. He was so cool. So cool. And then at the end of their interview, I turned my camera on again and I just thank both of them for the opportunity to watch them speak. And LeVar was basically like, whatever you do moving forward, just go forth and conquer. And that has stayed with me ever since then. And I just really appreciate him for that, for encouraging me and uplifting me because that was my first internship. So to get a producer credit and meet a star, that was incredible.
Yeah, that is. And so, okay, so let's talk about that a little bit because that is like big, huge to like happen like straight out of college. This is your
Mm-hmm.
first time doing it. Like, so
Yeah.
how did you become an intern for that show? Like, what was the step for those who are out there that may want to do it?
That is a fabulous, fabulous question. So at the time, I was living in Washington, D.C. So I was studying media and strategic communication at the George Washington University. And at that school that I was in, it was really pushing us to get internships or jobs either on Capitol Hill, working for a congressperson, or working in some sort of news agency. So I'm really not sure how I stumbled upon CBS particularly, but I do remember going online, doing a lot of heavy research, and finding out that they had an internship program because their headquarters were literally just down the street from where I lived. So I was like, that's convenient, first of all. And it seems like a good opportunity for me and my major. The only thing is I'm a grad student. So do I apply? Do I qualify? So yeah, I went online, I did my research, found out they had opportunities for grad students. So that's number one, is like see if they have opportunities for you if you're an undergrad, if you're a grad student, and then apply. So I applied, I did the virtual interview, and I really just gave the rest up to God. And I was like, if this is meant to be, then it'll be. And did my interview, got accepted, and the program was actually meant to be in person. So really, I would have done my internship in Washington, D.C., but due to the pandemic, they made it a 1 month experience, virtual experience, combined for everyone. So whether you were going to intern in New York or Washington, D.C. or LA, they just put us all together. So that was an interesting experience, to say the least. And
Absolutely.
we had to do a project at the end talking about COVID-19 and how it affected our particular areas. So I did my internship from here at home in Dallas. Yeah.
Wow. Wow, that is like for real, that's amazing because like I said, so many people they want to take that path. And a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times we just say like how you could have easily said, well, I'm in grad school and
Yeah.
they're not going to accept a student for this internship and not looked it up, not did any research and just allowed it to pass you by. So that is very like fascinating and inspiring. I hope everybody out there listening to just still go for what you
Mhm.
want. Don't
Absolutely.
allow your own self
That's
to
right.
limit you
That's
to
right.
opportunities. Wow, that's amazing. So now let's move on. So fast forward, you're back here in Dallas and you started As Told by Victoria started first. So let's talk about that first. So tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about As Told by Victoria.
As Told by Victoria, that is me. So that was my blog at first, and I started that back in 2019 as a grad student, still at George Washington University. So I figure if I'm going to be writing a lot of research papers and academic papers, I might as well be writing for me, like write creative content that is fun and that is just creative. So I decided to launch a blog, and I really have to give credit to my mom because she just put the idea out there. She was like, "Why don't you start a blog?" And I was like, "I don't want to start. That sounds like a lot of work." But then after she left, because she stayed with me for a little bit, I was like, you know what? Let me start a blog and let me build up a community. And so it was just something that I was thinking about, and um, asking God, like, what should I call it? Like, what should I do? And so the name As Told by Victoria just came to me kind of as a whisper. When, like, I don't know how God speaks to you, but like for me, he kind of speaks to me in like whispers, kind of when it's super quiet. That's when things are really clear for me. So I just heard As Told by Victoria. So I changed my Instagram handle and I made that the name of my website and my blog. And I just decided to write about topics that were interesting to me. And at the time, it was talking about college life, travel, and what else? College life, travel, and creative living. Creative living, I'm not exactly sure what creative living means, but those were the three things that I really wanted to focus on.
Right. So let
Yeah.
me ask you this here. So did the thought ever cross your mind, like, why would people listen to you?
Hmm.
Like, what makes you an expert? Like, did that ever
Sure.
cross your mind? And how did
Sure.
you overcome that?
Sure, absolutely. There's blogs, self-titled blogs like I think Exo Nicole and Perez Hilton and things like that. And for me, yeah, of course that crossed my mind, but I was just starting. So I had to give myself some sort of grace. If not, I wouldn't have started at all. At all. So I was really kind of hard on myself with the template of my website because I started on WordPress. Um, but afterwards I kind of had to get over that because I was like, I'm this is just the beginning for me. Who knows what this could lead to? And so I started doing outreach, and I had a section on my blog called red no not red table talk but real table talk. Again, shout out to my mom because she really influenced that particular section of my blog, and I just started emailing influencers, and I was really inspired truly by Meghan Markle. So Meghan Markle, she had a blog called The Tig before she married Prince Harry. And on that blog, she interviewed influencers and was basically asking them like brief questions like, what would you do with $10 if you had the last $10 in your pocket? What would you do with this? So I just sent them a template of questions, and I was like, this is for my blog. I would love to interview you. And lo and behold, they would reach back out and send me their answers. So that that was a an eye-opening experience for me because it showed me that people do want to talk to me. People are curious about me just as much as I'm curious about them. But I unfortunately, the content on that blog is no longer there because I didn't back up my data. So that I do blame myself. But overall, I still have the same Instagram handle as Told by Victoria. So it can make a comeback. It can make a comeback.
Yeah, and most definitely. And the reason I asked that question is because a lot of times we people and people that are watching this video, people that are going to watch it, they have some of the most amazing ideals, and
Yeah.
but they have like award-winning books and recipes and concepts all in their head, but they're telling themselves what qualifies you to do this. And it
That's right.
stops them from doing it
Mm-hmm.
because they're afraid no one is going to buy it, no one is going to look for it, and or whatever the case. And we are holding our own selves back in so many areas because our inner voices of doubt are constantly telling us, who are you to do that?
Yeah.
Like, why would people listen to you? So
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that's good that you push through that because you could have easily said, well, hey, nobody's gonna listen to me. I'm just Victoria.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. And you know what? It's something that I'm still pushing through. It's still pushing through to this day. And it's something that I have to continue encouraging myself and lifting myself up because not everyone is going to tell you, like, oh, I see what you're doing. Keep going, keep grinding. Like, I have to be that person to uplift myself when no one else is around. This wall behind me is full of quotes, literally, that uplift me and encourage me every single day. And there's a quote back there that says, push yourself because no one else is going to do it for you. uh, yeah, push yourself because no one else is going to do it for you. So that keeps me going as I get older, for sure, because when we're kids, we encourage kids a lot and tell them like, oh, you can do anything when you grow up. um, Keep going, keep fighting. But then when you get older, it's like you have to do it for you. You can't always expect people to lift you up.
yeah, yeah, that is so true. And like you said, as you get older, that's when it tends to seep in a little bit stronger.
Absolutely.
Responsibilities and just life in general and experiences tend to slow us down a lot of times. And
Absolutely.
it's so important. That's why we talk about here on the podcast a lot, the circle that you surround yourself with. You have to surround yourself with like people that are going to believe in you even when you don't believe in yourself,
That's
but
right.
you have to also understand people are fickle. So they're going
Mhm,
to cheer you on today. Same
mhm.
people. Victoria can call me up. I say, Victoria, that's a great idea. Tomorrow you call me. I'll be like, Victoria, what the hell are you doing? It's the same idea from yesterday, but my mood has changed, which
Absolutely,
means my viewpoint of what you're
absolutely.
doing has changed. So
Mhm.
in those moments, that's why it's so important that you can encourage yourself. So that evolved into the Feel Your Feelings
That's right.
podcast. So let's talk about, I love evolution. I love evolution. So let's talk about that.
Progress.
Yeah.
Progress. Okay, so Feel Your Feelings podcast. That was an idea rooted in really uncertainty. So I was doing my capstone at the time, and we were supposed to either do a research paper, a media project, or a thesis. Now, research paper and thesis, no, that was just not up my alley. I was like, media project. Let me do a media project. So I decided to do a podcast, and again, I had to really encourage myself because I was didn't really want to be on camera. I was like kind of insecure about the way I talked, the way I looked, just being completely transparent. And I decided to do that because I just felt like a need, like the energy around 2021 after not after the pandemic, after they told us to leave campus because they didn't want any students to get sick, which makes sense. But I felt like there was just so much loneliness and emptiness among young people, people that I noticed on the news, and the Black Lives Matter was happening. It was just like a lot of chaos. And I was like, okay, this is more than a project. Like, I really want to like say something. So I decided to do a podcast and came up with the title Feel Your Feelings Podcast with a Z, particularly because I wanted to focus on Gen Z and talk about Gen Z issues. And so you feel me?
I feel you because
And
when
that
I
was
first saw that, I was like, oh, she's just
yeah,
trying to be hip and not spell it with an S. But
you
hey, there we
know,
go.
shout out to Tupac because I thought of his All Eyes on Me album, and the Z, he had a Z for the S instead of the on the eyes part. And so I took inspiration from him as well because that was trendy and that was hip. So I decided to launch it. And I've talked to students, I've talked to professors, I've talked to young people, I've talked to older people. So I
You've
consider
even
it
talked
now
to some
from
celebrities.
I have which one?
Yeah.
No, I'm just which one? No, I'm just playing. But I've talked to. It's really from a Gen Z perspective, not necessarily for Gen Z because I know how broad that sounds when we talk about okay, who is Gen Z? Like for every person in your gender? No, it's just from a Gen Z perspective. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, okay, so there was one celebrity, and I cannot think of this guy's name right now off the top of my head, but he was an activist. Kamai or some. What was the guy's name? He was a black guy. You interviewed
Um,
him. He's pretty famous.
I'm thinking. I was thinking of the singer at first. His
Yeah.
dad is famous. Asher.
No, no, this ain't him. It was a guy, a black guy. And but we'll come back to it. It'll come
Okay.
back to me. I'll
Yeah,
research that. So
yeah.
let's get to tonight. So first off, we're talking protecting my peace.
That's right.
So that's something we hear a lot on the net. We see it. It's a hashtag, and everybody's talking about I'm protecting my peace. And
Mhm.
it's always when they're talking about getting rid of somebody. That's
Yeah.
mainly when I hear it. Oh, I'm not gonna let you disrupt my peace. So for you, what does peace mean? What is peace?
Peace to me means stability. Peace means stability.
You
Yeah,
want?
in all aspects. Oh, elaborate.
Yeah.
um, so first and foremost, like I have to say mental stability, mental peace. Because if you don't have peace here, it's really hard to see it in the exterior, in your external world. Like we have to have inner peace. And that sounds so cliche, but having like a calm mind, having a quiet mind, waking up feeling like oh my gosh, this is gonna be a good day. Like, I really don't have anything to worry about. Like, thank you, God. Like, thank you for this day. Thank you for all the blessings coming my way. That's literally what I tell myself every single morning. That's my prayer when I wake up in the morning. But peace to me is stability. And it could look different for everyone, but that's what it means to me.
Yeah, and I think that's like, I mean, that's really good because that's similar to me. So peace means my most peaceful state is when my mind is silent. And what people, the world can be chaotic. I could be going through so many things, but if my mind is quiet,
Mm-hmm.
I'm mostly at peace, and that comes from me releasing control of whatever is going on, because it's funny how in certain situations in life, like I can quit a job and don't think nothing about it.
That's
And
right.
I may not even have money in a bank, but I can quit a job and just because I already know that that is going to work out. So it doesn't disrupt me. But life situations, other situations, sometimes it can like cause me to stress out, to lose sleep. And in those moments, my world is not peaceful. And it's the chaos is going on in my head because,
Yeah.
like I said, I have to go through this whole process where I release whatever I'm going through and I say, hey, this is out of my control. I cannot change this situation. And I just have to like let it go. And
Yeah.
once I let it go, my mind is silent.
That's
And
right.
it doesn't mean that the problem is solved. It
Mm-hmm.
just means that I'm at this state where I realize it's out of my control. So I'm just gonna
Let
let it,
go and let God.
yeah, let go, let God, and let it work itself out, or
That's
let it
right.
turn out how it's supposed to turn out. So for you, how do you stay in that mindset? You know, and one thing I do like about you, so this is a funny story, y'all. And as Victoria said, I'm her uncle, she's my niece. But I told her when I invited her on this podcast, I said, hey, look, we're not talking family. I'm not looking at you as my niece. This is a grown man talking to a grown woman, and we're going to have grown people conversation because I respect everything that she's doing. So this week, and this is the one thing that I love about Gen Z, this is that selfish part I was telling you about. So last week I sent Victoria a text. I said, hey, Victoria, I need some pics for promo and some videos and all this other kind of stuff. So Victoria, she has red receipts to come up on it.
Don't start, Uncle. Don't
Yeah, yeah.
start.
So I saw she read my text, but didn't respond. So then I sent her a follow-up text. I said, hey, you know, because I'm looking at her as a grown woman, not my niece. I said, hey, you know, I understand if you're having second thoughts about doing it, just let me know,
Right.
you know, if you can't do it. But, you know, so I saw her over the weekend and we talked about it. But in that moment, she had a lot going on in her life. And that's what I was talking about. Not so much selfish in a bad way, but she was looking at what impact her at that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And she was doing what she had to do. And that's what I think a lot of us, we lose that over time. We lose it. And that's why a lot of our lives are chaotic because we can't make a decision for our own self what is the best for us to stay in that level of peace. So, what do you do to stay outside of ignoring your uncle when he texts you? What do you do to stay in that peaceful mind?
Yeah, again, I want to apologize for that because I didn't know my
Yeah,
read
yeah.
receipts were on. So I handled that part.
That won't happen again. You won't know I read it.
So you said, what do I do when
Or to stay in
to
peace.
stay in
Like,
peace? Oh, I have to I have to really get quiet. That can mean like being alone. So I consider myself an introvert. I don't know if you consider me an introvert, but I am. I'm an INFJ in my Myers Briggs. But anyway, I have to get somewhere and just be still, be quiet, recalibrate, reset. That can mean listening to music, um, scrolling sometimes and quiet, looking out the window. I'm like a really big like nature watcher, so I'll just like watch, like just look at the trees, watch the birds. I'll just like really zone out. And that really helps me to like stabilize my mind amidst the chaos and everything. I'm also a spiritual person, a person of faith. God really guides me in a lot of things, and I think of some of the wisdom that the Bible says, which is like, don't be anxious about anything. If God can feed the birds and, provide for nature, what makes you think he doesn't got you? So yeah, I just kind of have to steady myself because I tend to think really fast. Like, even though I am quiet and to myself at times, like, that doesn't mean that my mind is super like slow. Things can be kind of noisy. And it's really necessary for me to quiet it down for me to be able to function properly. So yeah, finding stability. Finding
Yeah,
stability.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I like how you said you have to quieten down, and because I'm exactly the same way. I
Yeah.
have to and when I did go into the office every day, I work remote now, but when I went into the office, because my house and my space at home is so important to me. It's so
Yes.
super
Your
important to me,
space. Oh.
my space. So what I would do is every day when I would drive home, I would have like a 35 minutes to an hour commute home. I
Mm-hmm.
listened to no radio. I talked to no one. I
Okay.
didn't do anything. My car was completely silent because I needed to detox,
Mm-hmm.
work, and get to a place where I was back quiet. My mind was back quiet because, and it doesn't mean that I didn't care about what was going on in work. I just didn't want to bring that energy into my home.
That's right.
I didn't want to bring that energy into my home. So I would every day just ride home and not listen to anything or not talk to anyone because I needed to silence
Yeah.
the noise, the screaming that was going on in my head from
Yeah.
the day. So I'm gonna pose a question to the people out in the chat. What do
Yeah.
you all do to get to a peaceful state? Go ahead and put that in the thing, and then while we're doing that, Victoria, you had someone. I guess they have the same process as you. Just because you text me, don't mean I have to
Oh,
respond.
that's a good one. Just because you
Okay,
texted.
yeah,
Mhm,
okay, yeah. We're gonna
mhm.
match energy.
Just make sure
Yeah.
you turn your read receipts off. Just make sure you turn them off so the other person can't see, like, oh, you read the message. Oh, I see how it is. You know?
Oh my God. So let's see. Oh, and then here goes another person who's on your side, and they came for me. And your uncle can be impatient
Well,
and can. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna match that energy too. And then, oh, so Willie came back and said one thing I guess he does to get to his peaceful state is not answer text messages. Okay, yeah.
sometimes you do have to step back from the messages. You can come back to them, like make sure you don't forget them. Make like you can, yeah, come back to them, but
Yeah, come back to him. But Willie said he let them see it. I'm protecting my peace. Okay.
oh my goodness.
Okay. So he's on the same bandwagon with you. Laura said everything doesn't need a response, text or talk. That's how you control your
That's right.
peace. I
That's
agree. I
right.
agree. Okay. And Willie, I agree with you in some regards as well. Anybody else? Anybody else out there that have some um tips on how you handle your, protecting your peace? What
Yeah.
we have out there? Okay, but so let me ask you this here,
So,
Victoria.
yes.
Like, so every day, like, because I mean, like I said, I watch all of your podcasts and
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
And there was this one podcast that you were talking about. You was talking to this young lady, and I think you interviewed this singer or artist. He was an artist, I do know. I can't remember his name right now.
Yeah.
But and you went into his DM and you asked him about that. Like,
Yeah.
how did you overcome that fear? Because you talked about that a little bit in your podcast. How did you overcome that to just say, I'm going to go for it? What did you do to do that?
Yeah, so he was the one that I mentioned earlier that he's famous. His dad is famous. So his dad is the actor David Oyelowo, um, who played Martin Luther King in Selma. So that's his dad, and he's an artist. He's a musician, and I found out about him through his dad's Instagram page because I follow his father on Instagram. So when his dad posted about his son making music and everything, and I listened to the music, and I was like, "Oh, this is really good! Like I know good music when I hear it. I'm a big music lover." Um, and yeah, so I had been listening to him for a while. I think I had been actually following him for maybe a year or 6 months prior to reaching out to him. So I had the necessary experience or like a fan base to like really reach out to him. It wasn't like super cold, like I just found out about you. Like, no, I had been listening to his music like back to back on repeat. So I reached out to him through the DM. And again, this was around the time where I felt like I needed to do video podcasting. So it was all audio up until that point, right? And then I decided to do a series, and I wanted to put that series on YouTube. So I had people lined up already. I was like, he would make a great person for the series. It's called the Misunderstood series. And here he drops the album called Mr. Misunderstood. Like, if I don't go for it now. So I end up sending him a DM, very respectful, just saying like, I would love to have you on my show. I'd be honored. Should I reach out to you or your agent, your manager? Let me know. So he sends me his manager's email address, and I'm emailing her, and she's like, yeah, he would love to be on it. So that's how that process got started. And I'm super grateful to this day that he was on my show, because that showed me like, okay, I can have artists that I like on my show. I can have actors, musicians, whoever on my show, as long as I put the necessary effort in and passion in and proper research in as well. You know, not just being a fan, but being someone who like respects their craft and really wants to pick their mind about their knowledge of their craft is super important too. But outreach again is something that I'm continuing to work on. And, you know, I would love to ask you the same question of how you do it, but that's something that I'm continuing to work on, is not to let myself get in the way sometimes. Because you can look at an artist and be like, oh, they have lots of followers, like they've already been on podcasts, like why me? But then I need to shift my perspective and ask like, why not me? They haven't talked to me yet. They could have a completely different conversation with me. I just have to shoot my shot, and then if it's a no, it's a no. That's the worst they could say.
Yeah, and I think the question, and I'm glad you followed up with that, because the real question is, why not me?
Yes.
It's not why me, because we know why me. I mean, we're qualified and we've studied, like you said, you've done all the research.
Mm-hmm.
You're not a fan. You are good at what you do. So there are thousands of reasons. And I think this is for everybody that is listening out there that wants to do something. There are 1,000 reasons why they should come to you or allow you to do whatever you do. But most times it's really not even a reason why they shouldn't. Mm-hmm. But we put all of these thoughts in our head why they shouldn't do it. We will, like I said, we'll say I'm not smart enough, or I don't have the fan base, or I'm not known enough, or they're not going to come on my podcast because they can go on somebody else's podcast.
Right.
Yeah. So you have to ask yourself, why not me, opposed to why me? So
that's right.
Yeah. I think that is like really cool. So yeah, you still struggling with where you say you deal with that sometimes though?
Yeah, absolutely. Even now, I'm still working on new episodes. School has taken precedence for the most part, but finding new guests to reach out to is still like a hurdle that I'm having to get over. Is like, still ask them. You're a student, but still you still got to do your thing, because it's just me. I'm the host. I'm the creator, producer, editor, marketing person. I do it all for my show. So again, I have to show up because no one else is going to do it for me.
Yeah. So I'm going to pose a question to the people that are out there that put in a thing. So Willie, I'm going to ask you, since you responded earlier, how do you, other than avoiding text messages, how do you protect your peace? And Lori, same question for you. And Leslie, I am Diva. How do you all protect your peace? Let us hear how you guys protect your peace out there. Because I think it's for some people, and the funny thing for us, silence and quieting ourselves is our state of peace. But some people, they don't feel comfortable unless chaos is going on in their lives.
That is real.
Yeah, peace is not always silent.
Peace can be uncomfortable for some people.
Yes.
If it's
Yes.
too peaceful, it's like, how can I stir the pot? How can I make something messy real quick? You know,
Yeah. They like the drama. They like the
human nature.
drama. They like that little spice all
Yeah,
the time, and they feel most peaceful in those moments when
hmm,
life is chaotic for them as well as
yeah,
for others. And like for me, those are the people that I try to avoid in life
that's
because they
toxic.
keep life noisy. And I don't
Hmm.
like noisy living. I don't like
Yeah,
that. So, but they
yeah,
do keep it noisy. So yeah, so peace is subjective.
yeah,
And it all depends on who you are.
yeah, yeah.
So
That's right. And I respect peace because it's something that while you have it, you can sort of take it for granted. Cause that's just when you go to the store and get groceries and come back home, we take that for granted. Something as simple as that. In some places, people aren't able to do that without walking down the street and being afraid for their lives. Um, so for me, I don't want to wait until it gets super bad to be like, oh, peace, like I need it, I need it. Like while I have it now, I'm really thankful for it because somewhere somebody doesn't have the same privilege that we have. So it's a gift.
yeah. Yeah. And that is so true. Some people don't have it. And some people want that level of peace, but
Yeah,
because they have so much going on in their lives that they can't, find that peace, that sense of peace. And I think a lot of times too, for a lot of people, we are our own distractions and we are our own enemy in regards to peace because
yeah,
we are in our own thoughts all the time telling
yeah,
ourselves X, Y, and Z, all of these negative things, all of these speeches of doubt, and that keeps us noisy. I don't know, but
yeah.
yeah. So I'm waiting for Willie, Lori, and anybody else. If you're out there and you want to put your comment up here, what do you do to protect your peace? I definitely want to hear from some of you. So we're going to give y'all a few little moments to come up with that. But Victoria, so like what is next for you? What's your next step? What happens to you? Where do you go from here?
From here, I'm finishing up my spring semester because I'm currently in my second semester of grad school online. I go to USC and I'm in the Iovine and Young Academy, which was co-founded by Dr. Dre and Jimmy Iovine, um, which is an academy for entrepreneurs. I'm studying design, business, and technology. So it's an academy for budding entrepreneurs, product designers, uh, technology heads. That's at best how I could best describe it. But my next move right now is to finish my spring semester. I'm planning on taking summer classes and then graduating this fall by the grace of God. And pursuing all that God has for me in my life. And I'm being very broad about that because I'm still very open minded and I don't want to narrow myself down too much or pigeonhole myself. I do have so many interests. I have dabbled in software development, I have worked in marketing, I have done some projects relating to acting, modeling. Um, what else? What else? What else? Yeah, being a student, there's plenty of projects that I'm working on. So I'm keeping myself open minded at the moment and just looking forward to what God's plans are for me. And I want to make sure that my plans are aligned with his plans. So
Yeah. And I just talked with somebody about that today, like being on the path that God has for you. And
mm-hmm.
I look at that as almost like a road trip.
Yeah,
And on the road trip, you're on this road trip, you know where you're headed, you know where you're going to end up. But along the way, you can exit the highway and stop at a restaurant and enjoy this moment. And that's what life is supposed to be about.
good job.
When you just keep it open and not
Mm-hmm.
narrow it down. Long as you
Yeah,
get there, you may exit just a little bit, just
yeah,
enjoy what is along the way. And
mm-hmm.
then you get back on the highway. And
Yeah,
that's when you say you want to dibble and dabble in some things. That's the beauty of being young. That's the beauty of not having kids and all of
Mhm.
that stuff right now. You have the freedom to do all of those things.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
love that. So Leslie came back and Leslie said, you have to come to a point and know what matters and what doesn't. Everyone and everything doesn't deserve a response. I don't do drama and try not to allow drama to do me. That's good, Leslie. I love
Amazing.
that.
Amazing. That's good.
And Willie came back and said, peace to me is no drama, whether personal or
Personal or
work.
work.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Like
So,
Matt
okay.
said.
Yeah, that's really, really good. So you have a lot on your plate and you have a lot coming up. And, I am like really, really excited that you came on tonight, and
Thank
I just
you.
say to you, and I'm going to ask you this here,
Yeah.
what advice would you give someone that is out looking at this podcast tonight? What advice would you give them, you know, in regards to, not
Yeah.
protecting their peace? What advice would you give them?
Your peace is your peace, whether you realize it or not, is the most important thing you have, and you have to protect it at all costs. So, if you come from an environment that is toxic, or you are in a toxic relationship, friendship, or work environment, whatever it may be, at the end of the day, you can't let them steal your peace, because if they take that from you, it's going to take everything out of you, and you have to really maintain it. Because I can kind of attest from personal experiences, like not being at peace, whether that's emotionally, mentally, you name it. It's not a good feeling. So make sure that you are protecting it as best you can. Go to God, go to people that you trust, talk to people about it, read books, find things that can bring you back to number one. Like my mom always says to me is like, always look out for number one. And number one is you. So always take care of number one, right? No one else is going to do it for you. No one else is going to do it for you. So protect it as much as you can. Yeah.
Yeah. And let me ask you this here. As you get older, do you think that is becoming clouded? Is blurred sometimes making you number one? Do you think?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. There are so many distractions in the world. You turn on the TV, there's so many distractions, fear, worry, anxiety. It's like all hitting us at once. Social media. And yes, I'm on social media. I watch TV. It's not something that I'm hiding from. I can't escape it. Um, but it is getting harder as I get older. Um, going back to like no pushing yourself, because no one else is going to do it for you. I have to keep pushing myself to guard my heart, guard like the things that I see, the things that I hear, and what I allow in. um because from, what does the Bible say, like from the heart, or from as a man thinketh, so is he. So like, yeah, I just want to be super careful about what I'm putting out there, because whatever I'm putting out there is a reflection of like what's already in me. So I would just want to make sure the things that I'm taking in are like good, positive, uplifting, empathetic, like pure things, so that I can give that back to people, and not spread fear, because there's enough people out there already doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know your platform is built around mental health and,
Yes.
encouraging people, to live their best life, so yeah, that's
Yeah.
really, really, really good. That's really, really good. And
Yeah.
Casal said, peace is
It's
invaluable.
invaluable.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, Victoria, we have come to a wrap here tonight, and I am so honored to have you on the podcast and so excited to watch you evolve into even greater. And want, like I said, one of the reasons that I wanted and was so excited about having you on there is because you are at this stage, I love your transparency where you said it's becoming harder
Yeah.
as you get older to be selfish, and to make you number one. But I definitely encourage you to hold on to that as long as you possibly can, because the older we get, we add on responsibility, we add on other people in our lives that we have to take into consideration when we are making decisions for our lives.
Mhm.
And then a lot of times those things change and we just become so complacent in not doing anything and using others as a excuse that we find ourselves unhappy, unfulfilled,
Mhm.
and all of those type of things.
Right,
So
right.
yeah, I think that's really, really good. And Lester said, this was a great show. So proud of you, Victoria. Keep walking in your calling, enjoying life, following God in your heart.
Thank you.
And Laura said, great podcast tonight.
Thank you for
And
listening.
yeah, the person who was agreeing with you on everything, best guest of the season, positive vibes
Thank you.
only. So so yeah, I'm not going to even address that because they are trying to see, this
Oh,
is one of those protect your peace moments right here.
oh,
So I'm gonna stay peaceful with this one right here. But
okay.
but thank you for coming on the
Thank you.
podcast. And
Thank you.
everyone, please click on that like, and let's
Yes,
go back, click on that like, but also before you go and follow Victoria on Instagram and on TikTok. On Instagram, she's the Feel Your Feelings podcast. And on
mhm,
Facebook, as told by Victoria. And you can go out on YouTube and search for her name, Victoria
mhm,
MaKanjuola, and you can
mhm,
find
mhm.
all her podcasts. She did one podcast, Talking Shit. That was a really good
With
podcast.
Paula?
Yeah,
Yes.
that was a really good podcast.
Yeah,
So yeah, definitely check that one out.
yeah.
And yes, she did. I mean, yeah, you can follow her on all of those platforms.
All of them, everywhere. And I just want to say thank you to you, Mr. Dope Ass Dude, for having me on your podcast as well. Keep doing what you're doing. I admire you. I'm, following in your footsteps as well. So keep being a light and an inspiration to me and the young people because we're watching. So thank you so much for what you do and keep it up.
Thank you, thank you. And everybody, we will see you guys on next week. Next week, Jay Christian is the guest for next week, and we're going to be talking about relationships. He's a relationship coach. So we're going to be talking about that. He is the founder of the Cognac Room podcast. So have a great podcast lined up for you guys next week as well. And yeah, so make sure you like this video and share it with as many people as you possibly can. And until next week, peace.
Peace. Thank you.
Let's get this. Here we go.